Welcome everyone to this session titled Inactive as Agentivity. My name is Mdluli and I'll be chairing. Our first speaker is, well, our first presenter is Nomcebisi Moyikwa, and she's from Rhodes University, and her paper is titled Ukuzenza, Ngokwenza, a Discourse on Black Feminist Subjects. So, do I hand over to you?
Right.
I see you have a co-presenter there. Super.
So my topic really is like a continuation of what just happened in the fine arts department. So I'm just going to read a little bit. Just a disclaimer that I'm a little bit numbed up by current events in my family. I think it was on Sunday where I was trying to call home to check up on this whole person because I live in Durban and the teacher didn't put it in, so I'm like doing the mother situation. As I'm calling, she keeps telling me about my niece's underwears. And I'm just wondering, what is happening here? She keeps mentioning underwear, and then my mom takes the phone, and then this is when I knew, finding out that my 8-year-old niece got raped in that evening. And these are the news that I'm hearing from my daughter through the translation of what she was hearing. So at the moment, I'm in a moment of, so my paper is called Ukuzenza, yes. Ukuzenza Ngokwenza, a black female discourse. I'll read the abstract a little bit. Dilare, in her essay titled South African Feminism, Race and Racism, asked, beyond naming the problem, reworking our theory and research, what does an anti-racist feminism mean for what we do in our organizations and in our daily lives? So you can see how my conversation is going to be. So this question for me reflects on black feminism as a site for the making and elaboration of new forms of personhood, of the new black in the post/transitioning South Africa. Collaborating this question, this paper is initiated by my interest in asking where one would begin to think or do if they were not responding and reacting to the colonial and apartheid narrative, or to the effect of colonialism and apartheid. I also ask about the new forms of personhood that would come with answering this question. This project then looks at repositioning thought from a phenomenon that is owned by history, context, and the local, to thought existing as something that is preserved, hosted by the human as they come into becoming. So I'm a performance studies lecturer, so I deal with the body a lot. So I think you can read in my positioning of thought positioning of the thought in the body rather than from the outside. In this reading, then, thought does not come after or before, happens outside and away from the human. One does not precede the other. These two things exist simultaneously. So everything follows from this principle that the black subject is not to be reduced to a simple, symptomal or resisting reactionary subject, but rather that we hear in her, I was talking about myself, I'm still talking about myself, what is unreal, calling attention to modes of black articulacy previously overlooked. I say I propose that we include thought of the black subject to happen in primary language, not language of transformation, recovery, rediscovery of freedom, in order to stage an utterance, not an explanation or an analysis. So again, I'm dealing with the issue of translation and how can we utter and not translate. What I propose then is a series of portraits, or we think of images, or think of a body that offer the reader a discursive site, the site of me speaking within and through myself. This reading attends to the enjoyment, relations, pleasure, fantasy, absence, dispositions, traumas, anxieties, expectations, expenditure, silence, magic, attachments, and negotiations, attached to making new forms of personhood that are informed in journeying to find a narrative that move beyond responding and reacting to colonial and apartheid narratives. I say this could be read as an attempt or a negotiation in reimagining what it means to be a human being. I say being human in this context signals not a noun but a verb. Being human is a praxis, referencing Sylvia Winter, of humanness that does not dwell on the static empiricism of the unfittest and the downtrodden and situate the most marginalized within the incarcerated colonial categorization of oppression. Being human as praxis is to borrow from Maturana and Varela. Being human is a realization of the living. So, obviously, this is a process, this is a thinking that I've been trying to process in my head. And as a theatre maker or performance studies scholar, I've been tracing my works, my creative works. I look back from 2015 onwards and I leave the other ones. I made a production called Inactivity, which with 6 women, including myself. And the production was to look at, because I read Pumla Ola's article, who was thinking about Sarah Batman, who was thinking of looking at creative writings as a way of imagining, a new way of imagining Sarah Batman, a new way of finding her subjectivity. And in the article she said, she goes, go away with representation, right? So what happens in stereotyping black women? So what happens in what Pumla is trying to articulate is to rethink what this woman would be, rethinking what being a black woman would be in creative works. What I was trying to do with Ngokwenza was the same thing, but in my process I was trying to do away with the stereotypes. But in the moment of research I realized, I myself I'm denying the fact that, and looking at the stereotypes of black women as a woman, the joker woman. I always reference the joker woman, who's always with the big bum and, toy car and cleaning. And I'm referencing the maid, I'm referencing what Melissa Harris Perry is talking about Jezebel. But in England, I was like, this woman exists, right? So this idea of not wanting to represent, do away with representation, and this idea of trying to eliminate the stereotypes, for me was to say, I'm saying these women don't exist, right? And so, but I had to ask myself a different question. So if these women do exist, right, what is it about the stereotypes that are problematic? And the problem with the stereotypes is giving language to the woman, right? And denying the fact that what they do is the language. So it's the language way of thinking. So I thought about I remember there was a scene in Ngokwenza where we were rethinking what it means, is too much clothes. And what that language is in terms of thinking about language that could speak to and about and with black women. And what does a language of doing could do into thinking about this new personhood, right? New person. And the narration that came was, I wash my clothes every day, I fold my clothes, I make sure that they are folded nicely and I put them in the wardrobe nicely. I like my space clean. I clean every day. So I'm reading this language of cleaning and reclaiming it in what it would mean to this woman, right? I'm not saying this stealing the language or taking it away from the colonial or the apartheid language. What does it mean to clean? Not in the face of the colony, right? Surely it means something different. And for a long time in my career, I have been involved in a project that I hesitate to call practicing or rehearsing being human. Yeah? Practicing, I say hesitantly, because I'm still not sure what that means at the moment. So, and I of my methodological processes as improvised moments of self, tool for become human or being human being. For many years in my creative project, I was tempted into wanting to understand what this would mean. The question, or rather the questions I was asking, were interested in what this final product would give me at the end. I ran through equations of Nomcebisi next to the board, Nomcebisi next to a kettle, Nomcebisi next to a house. And I was trying to figure out in my process of what this thing means. Dealing with proximity, dealing with space, dealing with height, dealing with angles, dealing with what music I use in my production. And then in the process, then I started thinking about what did Alice Walker mean when she said her mother would look after the garden. And I also asked a question because I remember last year, Yvette Abrams was talking, same thing that was referenced, I was talking about her imagining Sarah Backman having to have a garden. And I was thinking about what it meant when Toni Morrison was saying, I write without the white gaze. And I was also thinking about what Upumla Gola in her article in 2013, when she said, it's important that critique of power not ends with reaction, but that it goes further to imagine something new, more exciting, more pleasurable. Picture what we can create if we dare give ourselves permission to imagine freely. And I look also at what Audre Lorde in 1994, when she said, poetry is the way we help give name to the nameless. So it can be thought, the furthest horizons of our hopes and fears are cobbled up by poems carved from the rock experiences of our daily lives. And also thinking through what Thatshisiwe in 2004 was saying, when she said, silence in the everyday lives is language that could be used to expand our views of women's experiences of violence during regimes of terror. And I also going further, thinking of when I used to ask my grandmother what she meant when she constantly would say Turantet. And this question of what does it mean is a thing that the question I'm constantly asked as an artist as well, right? This wanting of transparency, this wanting of translation, right? And then I sort of had to move away because my grandmother used to laugh at me a lot when I say, what do you mean by 230? What do you mean by 230? And eventually I've learned, because I'm wanting this translation of wanting to know what this thing means, and then also wanting to know what does it mean when Alice Walker said she was gardening? What does it mean for Yvette Abrams saying she imagines Sarah Backman gardening? What does it mean when Toni Morrison says what does it mean to write outside of the white gaze? And what does it mean to write that? Which eventually I learned that she was saying Mdluli and Tate, right? Oh. It was a sacred quote that she used, where she used to sit down and clench her fist like that and roll around her thumbs and constantly say to run 30. Eventually, what does it mean? She was like Mdluli and 30, which means it doesn't mean silence. It means that I'm observing, I see, right? And I go back to the body there. What does the body mean in us trying to think of this new personhood, right? And I encountered a process that then goes, it means that. It means my grandmother sitting down, clenching her fists and rolling her thumbs and saying to run 30. It means that this woman is going in the garden and gardening. That's what it means, right? And so I'm starting to think then about this idea of the realization of the living. Realizing that I'm living. And Ukuzenza, Ngokwenza, that the doing is the making of the self, right? Which is something that I've been talking about when I say in my practice, I always say that I am practicing or rehearsing being human. In that process, improvising myself into humanhood, right? And so what I've been talking about, the practicality of the method then, which was spoken about in the previous seminar. What I've been trying to do with my own works is to directly write down not translate, direct write down what happens in my production. So instead, because if you're looking at performance, performance is ephemeral, right? It's something that tomorrow it changes, it disappears. Tomorrow it changes, it disappears. You can't hold it, right? And what we need to hold is the doing. So what I've been doing is to write down. She walked inside, she sat down, she looked, she touched. All of those things that seem to not be available or made not visible to us while in the world of the colony, right? So we're looking with the immediate. What am I doing? I'm sitting. What am I doing? I'm touching. What am I doing? I'm feeling something, right? So that the doing starts to become the language that returns us or that makes us practice our humanness and realize the living, what Valera and Mariama are talking about. And so that's what I've been doing, and that's the process that's the discourse. That even in me sitting here, that we read what I'm doing more than what I say and capture it. Because again, I have a problem with language because again, I'm talking about ephemerality. So how can we capture our doings and then trace that into how we then become this after I work with the post-apartheid, how we capture, I'm losing my train of thought now. I think, yeah, so that's what I'm doing practically, to capture the doing, to think about realization of the living. And I think Danai, what I was talking about also, that in our conversation we often deal with ourselves in the past and the future, but we're not recording the now. And yeah.
Thank you. So we'll take a round of questions after all the presenters. So our next presenter is Thatshisiwe, Ndlovu, and her paper is titled Silent Victims or Agents of Change, Narratives of Widowhood, Rites and Resistance in South Africa, Staying Put and Carrying On.
Yeah. Okay. Just a correction on the title. It's Silent Victims or Agents of Change, Narratives of Widowhood, Rites and Resistance in South Africa. Yeah, that's what the other part. Okay. So like I went into disclaimer, this paper is in its very preliminary stages. I had started thinking about it, applied for this conference. Somehow my funding wasn't approved, so I was like, let me put it aside and do it some other time. And then 2 days before I travel, funding approved. Now I have to come and present. Yeah, but I try to, yeah. So this is part of my master's project, and I am from development studies. So for my master's project, I was looking at how widowhood rights and actually customary law of inheritance and succession affects the economic well-being of widows. So upon doing this project, because I was using like the life history narratives with the widows themselves, and upon doing it, I realized that there is more to widowhood than dispossession and other things. So actually, I talked to widow number 1, widow number 2, then widow number 3. She says to me, like she's busy narrating on what happened after the death of her husband, how she was treated by the in-laws and everything else. And then she says to me, I kept quiet, keeping quiet is important. And she says this with a naughty grin on her face, and I'm looking at her like, no, you're not supposed to keep quiet, you're supposed to say something, If you just keep quiet, no one will know. And then she says to me, she further goes on to narrate how her silence resulted in triumph. She said she pretended to be too distraught to understand or even hear what her in-laws were saying to her or what they were demanding from her. And on the other hand, her mother thought she was just being cultural, and she encouraged her to keep quiet and never say anything and never respond to anyone. So this got me thinking, like, okay, there is more to this thing, and her like response, the quietness and the silence, to me it was a bit unsettling. I got to my supervisor, we talk, and after some time I'm like, let me just go for silences. That's when I came across Dr. Thatshiswe's article on the mute always speak, and it changed like the course of my research and my future research, just from development studies, more technical, but now I'm a bit flexible, I'm trying to do different things. So in this paper I explore the ways in which resistance is incorporated into everyday lives and practices of widowed women in South Africa, theorizing the nature of women's everyday resistance in social conflicts. In particular, the analysis is hinged on exploring how Black African widows exercise their agency, their silence being one of their chosen forms of resistance to challenge and disrupt patriarchal domination. The paper challenges the view that African widows are silent and helpless victims of patriarchal beliefs and practices, contributing to a renewed interest in understanding that agency can be located in expressions of silence and self-activism, as Dr. Nwachukwu says. So insights are drawn from the critical feminist concept of intersectionality, and I will try in the later stages of this paper to bring that in conversation with symbolic and cultural violence. So the paper also it endeavors to making visible widows' activism against widowhood rights and experiences as an example of people, spaces, and places where activism happens below the radar, largely unrecognized and under-theorized. In foregrounding activism that takes place beyond the emblematic and high-profile protests and away from the media spotlight, the paper contributes to debates around what counts as activism, as well as deepening our understanding of gendered activist practices. And also embedded within the research is the recognition of the multiplicity of forms that activism and activists may take. Understanding that activists may come in different, identities. It's complex. It's multiple. So, like, for me, I wouldn't expect a widow sitting in that mattress covered in, blanket and stuff to be resistant or to be doing activist stuff there while sitting and crying or pretending to be crying, whatever. So the example of South African widows activism allows us to explore the more subtle and less high-profile activism, where activism takes place embedded and entangled in everyday practice and the patchwork of daily life. And I understand that the concept of activism is always changing, it's shifting all the time. So I think with looking at widows, where you wouldn't expect that kind, it shows that activism is not a particular woman that engages in activism and resistance. So it is thus important to take a flexible approach to understanding activism in order to capture the broadest possible spectrum of practices and discourses. This article particularly draws on Scott 1986, Mutseme 2004, and Amos 2005, theorizing of everyday forms of resistance, arguing that the notion of everyday is particularly useful in making sense of women's resistance activities, especially in terms of understanding how such activism is sustained over time in often challenging and isolated circumstances. Amo emphasizes that though resistance is characteristically understood to be expressed through the politics of protest, demonstration, public statement, or declaration, then the more mundane gestures of everyday life reveal significant sides of the political struggle. Scott also characterizes everyday resistance in terms of individual, largely covert actions that require legal or no coordination or planning, such as passive non-compliance, subtle sabotage, evasion, and deception. And I think for this paper, my use of everyday will more lean towards what Askin's 2015 terms the quiet politics. And in the narratives and analysis that follows, we can see how Widow's actions shape and are shaped over a prolonged time scale by the stubborn persistence of patriarchy happening on a large scale in communities. The paper uses the lens of everyday to theorize women's resistance to widowhood rights. So I begin by exploring how widowhood rights, practices, and experience are the horrors that have a silencing and invisibilizing effect on women. And then I analyze how the ways in which these women turn their ordeals into resistance in unexpected ways. And I finally consider the less visible elements of their activism, acting to maintain continuity in the face of ongoing oppression and everyday conflict. So I'll just briefly go through some of the experiences that these women went through in order for us to understand the conditions that they find themselves in and how they then try to overcome some of these issues. So for me, in my reading of widowhood, the practices and the experiences of widows have been more of a source of curiosity rather than an understanding of their lived experiences and the agency that these women possess. So in that way, I feel they have been silenced. And I look at the culturally designed experiences of widowhood, how they are silencing effects, and these silencing effects are meant like the whole process, the widowhood rights, the practices, and everything that the experiences that these women went through. They were meant, even they understand that these are meant to break you, but somehow they managed to turn around their experiences into something positive, into they managed to push back against these oppressing and silencing acts that the society brought up on them. So some of their experiences, the first problem was for everyone, for all the 10 women that I talked to, was that they were accused of murdering their husbands. So I'll just read through what one of the women said to me. I experienced problem from my husband's side of the family. When a man dies, a woman is to be blamed. And yes, a woman is to be blamed. After that, they won't like you for real. I was blamed for the passing away of their child, you see. I don't know how I can put it across. When you're a woman and married and your husband dies, the woman is to be blamed. They say you are the one who killed him, forgetting that they saw him when he was sick, you see. Despite the fact that they know what killed him, but the woman is to be blamed. Despite the fact that they are very much aware, but the woman is always to be blamed. Therefore, that is how things are. Some of us are used to them. I did not feel sorry because I knew that I was innocent. It was painful to be accused, but I did not want to entertain it because I knew that I'm innocent. I knew that time that I knew what exactly killed my husband because he was sick, you understand. Therefore, I did not want to entertain it. They did not even help me financially. I buried my husband myself. They came and conducted themselves as visitors. I did not mind them. I told myself that I'm gonna bury my husband decently. I was never close to them before his death, and I'll never be close to them. To begin with, they never contributed anything, and they did not want to touch anything. Now they regret what they did to me. They realize that I'm a good person, but now it's too late. So this is like but one of the examples of what all the 10 women that I interviewed went through. And then the other thing is they undergo some, dehumanizing rites where you have to, you are bathed or you have to bath in front of people and that, and you feel uncomfortable and you have to drink some herbs. For some of them, it's not what they want to do with their lives. And some of the women experienced physical violence from male members of the family for refusing to hand over car keys, for example, for refusing to hand over money. One of the women was left hard across the face because she was asking, why do you want the car keys? It's not yours. And some women were dispossessed of their belongings. It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the husband, it belongs to our son, our brother, and those things are taken away. There are also issues of sexual harassment whereby the brother-in-law now wants to inherit you. So, and also there are issues around segregation or seclusion. You are this person with black, so you have to be somewhere at a certain corner and stuff, and there are also family disputes. So there's a lot of things that go on when, there's a death and there's this widow person who is there trying to, survive this whole thing. So there was a lot of family fragmentation and a lot of seclusion, just trying to break you because you refused with this, therefore you're no longer part of our family, or you go back to your family and stuff. And common to many women's narrative was a discussion of how their activist identities were forged through everyday low-level confrontations, especially with their male in-laws. Even though they didn't, talk about it as activism, they talk about it as, I refuse to do this and that. So this one, she talks of how the brother-in-law, now the male member of the family, the confrontation and stuff. She says, after his death, life became difficult. His brother and mother were rough to me. Before my husband died, we never fought. His brother used to help me take my husband to hospital and traditional healer, you see. I never fought with them. I never had problems with them before he died. When he died, trouble started. They harassed me and demanded money. They told me that their brother worked for many years and they want me to release the money. I asked them which money they want and what for. And then all hell broke loose. They told me that they want to make sure that he gets a decent funeral. They want to arrange for the funeral, and the only thing they want from me is money. All these things happened before the burial. That's what they do. They harass you before the burial. He was buried on Saturday. After that, things became worse. Even though my husband told them never to harass me or take property from me. When your husband is alive, his family does not show his true colors. However, when he dies, that is when they will show you their true colors. In my opinion, I think it is just pure jealousy. In-laws have that problem that you will remain with a lot of property, you see. They think that this person will inherit our brother's heart and wealth and everything, you see that. It is pure jealousy. They just want property and they do not even know or have the means to get the property. People are cruel. Some even tell you that if you still want to stay in the matrimonial home, then you have to marry into the family again. So this excerpt alludes to some of the challenges they face as women and the gender processes of social control within the families that limit the types of actions considered appropriate for these women to be involved in. Some had problems with non-recognition of marriage. All of a sudden, the family says they don't know that you're married, but you're married for the past 35 years or something. And some talked of, especially those who would wear the mourning attire, black thing, they talked of like ill treatment in the public spaces, like the taxi ranks, where, especially in the taxi, where you are asked to go sit at the back of the taxi. Because if you sit at the front, then you transmit bad luck to everyone in the taxi. So they talked of all those things. And some had problems with the whole issue of sitting in a mattress. Because with some families or some cultures, you have to face the wall. And one woman, let me just read what she says. This one I took it from Rhodes. She also wrote about these things. They say put down your mattress. You are expected to face the wall. What is the meaning of this? Why am I supposed to do this? How am I going to see people coming to comfort me while I'm facing the wall? I always ask questions about things that don't make sense, but I need to understand why. They say that this is the way it has been done before. Because our houses were so small, there was a small space for people to comfort you. They weren't fitting in the bedroom. But I said, why should it be done in the bedroom anyway? Why can't we sit in the lounge where there's space you share with these people? They said it was because of the space. What I've realized is that some of the people are getting out of that. There's a woman in our street in Orlando. Her 2 children passed away. She never sat on the mattress. She was in her lounge, and then people were coming to comfort her. They were comforting her in her own lounge. And they kept on saying she will see. After 2 months, one of the family members would die. No one died after that. So these are some of the experiences that these women. So I'll just highlight some of the small acts of resistance. It's silence. Most of them are expressed that as a widow you're expected to be silent. And they were silent, but they were doing things behind the scenes. Some of them were talking of we sitting on money, stashes of money under the mattress. Car keys, important documents, certificates, and all those things. They would just sit on them and they keep quiet. People will be in the bedroom looking for things while he's there. on those things. So, so in as much as these women couldn't engage in, like overt kind of activism and stuff, they would either stand alone or stand with the mother or a few sisters. But so when maintaining their social positions, one of them says, we're not the ones in charge. We just accept. It's men. They do these things, So they accept that position, but they turn around and use it for their benefit. I'll just try to. Okay. So some of the acts of resistance. One woman says she refused to be cleansed. But she never said, I don't want to be cleansed. She just went on and cleansed herself after this. So she says, I did everything for myself, including cleansing myself. When my mother-in-law asked about the date of the cleansing ceremony, I told her I will not do it. You see, I did not want them to touch me. So there's that whole thing around why should you be touching me and stuff. And some of them refused to wear the mourning attire. She says she allowed them to put that black thing on her. And then because she works, she removed it and put it on her wardrobe. So, and the other thing is, even though they don't speak, some of them allow like objects to speak for them, like take the marriage certificate and put it there. Then you know that if you put it there, no one will touch you, no one will. So it was all these acts that I found fascinating. I'm still trying to process and work around them. But for me, are they silent victims? No, they are not. They are agents of change. And I will close off by saying their stories, the stories of these 10 widows, reveal the formulation of what Nomcebisi in 2004 terms the new forms of agency by women under daily conditions of war.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Evelyn. Nwachukwu. Okay, no, say it right. And it's a joint paper.
Yes.
And Rowland, Chukwuemeka, Amaefula. Am I saying it right?
Yes.
The title of the paper is Cultural and Religious Factors as Catalysts of Patriarchal Hegemony and the Plight of Women in Mariama, thus So Long, a Letter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evelyn Urama. I co-authored the work with my colleague there, Rowland and Amaefula from Nigeria. In this study, and we are looking at the introduction, the theoretical framework, the issues about life, issues of life discussed in the module, and then the importance of education to women liberation, and also how women are responding to patriarchal treatment practices in this modern time in Senegal. Then we also look at the importance of women bonding as it is represented in the novel So Long a Letter by Mariama. In the introduction, we looked at the pre-colonial Africa and the colonial and post-colonial Africa, because the main issue, in the novel So Long a Letter is about abandonment and polygamy. So we looked at polygamy in Africa before the colonization. So before the coming of the white people, traditionally in Africa, there is polygamy, but the polygamy they practice then is different from the one they are practicing now. Because that time, a man, they need a big family for their farm work. So that is the reason why they marry many wives. And also, there is a kind of respect co-wives are called to the senior wife, the first wife of the man. They take her as their biological mother, and there is harmony in the family. And during that time, the man will build his reception, and we call it Obi in Igbo land, and then build courts round for the women, and there will be this harmony. But when the colonial masters came, they came with foreign religion. They came with Christianity, they came with Islam. And Christianity and Islam, with their own dogmas, changed the polygamy that had been existing in Africa. So in Christianity, they say one man, one wife. They don't, their doctrine does not have room for polygamy. But in Africa, there is still polygamy in Christian churches, because in Africa they prefer male children that will take up the inheritance after the man of the house. And if there is no male child in the family, the man will keep marrying many wives to get a male child. Many of them, even though they wedded in the church, will not abide by the dogma. They will go and marry their wife. Even there is cases of even reverend, priests in the church married, but they will, like in Igbo culture, because we practice same-sex marriage among women, they will go and marry their second wife through their mother. Then they will be visiting the woman, getting children from the woman. So then we looked at, in this polygamy in Africa now, the effect on women. Because in Africa, many countries in Africa are Islamic countries, and the way the men are capitalizing on the Quran, because the Quran allows a man to have 4 wives at a time, and they also giving they are permitted by Quran to beat up their wives whenever the wives, it is a kind of, making the woman submissive. And also, there is something they will say and they dissolve their marriage. So, for every woman in an Islamic country is just trying to please, she's living her life to please the man, because if the man cites that thing they say, the marriage will be dissolved. And not only that, the marriage will be dissolved. At times, there is the way the man will pronounce the judgment, and that woman will be cursed. No man will marry her again. So that is why, Africa as a patriarchal society, women are finding it difficult in many countries. So in the novel, So Long a Letter by Mariama, the subject matter of the novel is on abandonment, how men desert their wives. There were two women that were abandoned by their husbands in the novel. One is Asitwa, the second person is Ramatulaya, who is the protagonist of the novel. And then the third woman is Jacqueline, a woman from Côte d'Ivoire that was married by a Senegalese. And the woman that did not even know anything about their culture came to Senegal to find that the kind of infidelity among that is rampant among men there. So in all these things, we also have another theme there that is so that is debased women, and it is the theme of child marriage, because it's one of the in the family a child was raised trained to a mother-in-law. The mother-in-law of Asitwa, she didn't support her child to marry that woman because she came from a poor family. So because of class, she rejected the marriage, and in order to avenge on her son going to marry her, she went to her family, her father's family, picked the brother's child, trained the child as a nurse, so that the son will marry her. And her reason is that if the son would not obey her and marry a woman, he said he should not marry. That's because of education. That she's going to train somebody in school so that the son will marry her to show that she does not accept the marriage. So we looked at these men. What are the calibers of these men that abandon their wives in the novel? They are educated. They are all educated. Like the protagonist of the novel, Ramatulaya, is a lecturer in the university, and the husband is a lawyer. Asitwa, the friend, is a teacher in college, that is the secondary school, and the husband is a medical doctor. Then Jacqueline, the foreigner that came from Côte d'Ivoire, the husband is also a medical doctor. So it's not that these men are not educated. They are educated, but because they are Muslims, because the Quran has given them that power to marry many wives at a time, they do not even count on the law. Like in Asitwa, she has 5 boys for her husband. Ramatulaya and the husband, they have 12 children. But these men did not count on their children. They just, because they are Muslims and culture and their religion are giving them the power to go ahead and marry as many wives as they like. They did not count on the psychological trauma they are abandoning their wives will cause to them. They just deserted the marriage. The first abandonment in the novel is Asitwa's the mother-in-law training her niece for the husband, that is her son, to marry. So the Asitwa and the husband, they love themselves so much. Even the man found it difficult at the initial stage, but in order to be loyal to the mother, he succumbed. But Asitwa being assertive said, no, I will not stay. And the husband was begging her, stay. And he even confessed that he's not marrying the young girl because of love. Then the woman defined love to him, telling him that you have accepted to be sleeping with a woman and be raising children with a woman you claim you do not love. What is there love? As far as you want to obey your mother, I want a divorce, and the accepted divorce the husband and relocated to US. And when she traveled to US, she was doing well. She's doing well in US, and to the extent that even bought a car for the friend Urama, who is the protagonist of the novel. So in Urama's own, the abandonment by the husband, it is so terrible because the husband left the wife because of a friend of her daughter, their first daughter, a law student, brought the friend home, and the father just started having an affair with the friend. So at a time, the girl, that is being assured the woman married, confided in her own mother. The mother was named mother-in-law. Mother-in-law is the name given to her by the author. So she confided in her mother and to get advice from her mother. Then her mother encouraged her to go into that marriage, to leave her education and go into marriage. And we find out that women, these patriarchal practices in Africa, has indoctrinated women to be, to inflict pains on their fellow women. How can a mother encourage her daughter to go and marry somebody's husband? And not only somebody's husband, a family with 12 children. And that the daughter is a friend to the first daughter of that family. But the mother encouraged her to go into that marriage. So we highlighted it that it is a way, that we as women, we are, we shouldn't just because of material things, put fellow women in bed like this mother-in-law that are encouraging the daughter. And what is her reason for encouraging the daughter to marry that man? Her reason is that she wants to relocate from the village, leave her hut in the village, and come and live in the city. And the son-in-law, as a rich man that has car, will be driving her all along the streets in the city. So that is her reason. Because of material things, they advise the daughter to go and marry somebody's wife. And also, if we look at the mother-in-law of Asitwa, training somebody for the son, we also see that it is the pain, it will cause a fellow woman, just because the woman, she said that she came from a poor family, that she has a poor background. But the woman, struggled in school, was able to pass her exams and even become a teacher before the marriage. So that is our argument here, is that women should stop fighting their fellow women. That we should come, all women should come, form this bonding. That's like, help one another. Like as if you are buying a car for the friend when the friend is taking care of the family all alone. And also in the Ramatula, the protagonist of the novel, they had been in that marriage for 25 years, and the husband left her. after marrying the young girl, Binatu, the husband, was ordered that, ordered around by the little girl. The girl demanded for the car, and she would be driving the car. It will always be, demanding one thing or the other from the man, and the man, keeps spending. And they started having their own children. Imagine an old man having children at that age, and then he abandoned 12 children for that. And before he married the young girl, he was building a house, with the husband, with the wife, the former wife, and they took loan to go build it. But after building the house, he relocated. He took the second wife, that's the young girl, to that house, and left the old house. The woman and the other 12 children to be in the old house. Why? He would enjoy his life in the new house with that girl. And the girl did not even, think, this woman that receiving me in the family, treating me as, a daughter, because I'm a friend to her daughter, and just relocated to the new house with the man. But after the death of the husband, that same friend, Daba, that's the first daughter of Urama, was the person that, because that time she has become a lawyer. She, fought tooth and nail and got back the house for her mother. And also during the death, the burial of the husband, the culture, they supposed, they didn't even accord any respect to Amaefula for taking care of that, the 12 children all alone, and all the psychological trauma. The same treatment, the family gave her and the young wife the same treatment. They were, and all the burial rites in the morning they just divided. They didn't even care to know that this woman supposed to take the larger portions. But in all things, at the end of the novel, because it is written, it's just a letter. That is why it is called so long a letter. A letter she's writing to the friend as it were, because she is expecting that she will come back, because of the death of the husband. And in that letter, she just opened up her mind and shared her experience with the friend, who has helped her to be able to overcome some of the problems. There were trials and many things she suffered that she was able to overcome. But one thing I want to highlight before I stop is the three women that were abandoned. The first one left and located to US and was, they stayed there, was making, living her life, being assertive. The other, the Amaefula stayed in the house of the husband and suffered. She was able to, overcome at last, but. And the other woman, the Kodoba woman, was married to Senegal, and the husband abandoned. Her own, she developed, she was depressed that to the extent that she's, off and on hospital every day, until when, the one doctor was able to identify that it's the depression that she suffered from. So, women, there are different categories of women, and these, patriarchal practices in Africa, some are lost because of, what they are passing through. Some is only few that can, stand and continue with their life, and few people are suffering like, in silence, and they are dying. So our conclusion is that. Men should also join in this women liberation, and we should know that polygamy worked in the past, but it is no more working now. So that whether we are Muslims or Christians, we should encourage we should not encourage polygamy. We should, we should be advocating one man, one wife as Christianity. I don't know how it will work in Africa, but I believe that one
You're making trouble with it.
Well, thank you to the three presenters on, I think, very interesting papers around Black women's subjectivity. But before I open up to the floor for questions, I have my own sort of my own comments that I mean I'm putting them out there as a provocation to the speakers, but also to the audience. And one thing that I picked up in all of them, maybe not so much in yours, because I think your paper is very much rooted in your own personal kind of reading or personal working through what you're trying to articulate. But the other two, I didn't get a sense of the social class of these women, of women that you are referring to. Because I think that's especially in your case, that's instrumental, well, that's key, I think, in where are these women located socially, like in terms of class. Because I think the mourning or widowhood is different, depending on which social class you sit in. Yours as well. I'd like to get a sense as well as the class, but which women are you referring to? I know, yes, it's centered around the book, but
there are many.
Yes, sure. And then the other point I want to kind of table is on symbolic and cultural violence. And if you could maybe even speak about, I think you can also kind of speak about that in your own practice. How is that kind of, how does that come through? How do you speak about that, and how do the women you refer to speak about that? The last one last point I want to make is on, you mentioned objects and how objects can speak on behalf of the women that you were referring to, something like a death certificate, right? And maybe even to you on how do objects come in your practice to do the work that you are want to do. Yeah, and then with that I'll open up to the floor. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much for this beautiful presentation. My first question is to the first speaker. I just want to make a brief. Ukuzenza, I did not really understand what that was. Even when I tried, I was asking myself, where's that Ntoni Apa? So I was trying to remember my people to that. So in case of next time, so that you can have positive and good contributions, maybe it could have been explained a bit in English so that we can follow, because I was trying to bring it into the Black feminist discourse, but I just tried to understand that we're talking about practice. And my question is, when you talk about practice, my own uku, I'm forming my own physical self. If my uku is not positive, don't you think that another Black woman will pick up my uku that is negative and pass that negative uku on to the society? That's from because from what I understand, that's why I said I didn't understand what Ukuzenza, Ngokwenza, but we're talking about the practice. And my question is, if that practice is not, seems to you positive, but seems negative, don't you think that practice would pass on from you to me? Because sometimes some things we do might think it's right, and then the practice, somebody else would see me and think it is maybe right or wrong, and carry it on like that. I don't, that's what I am, trying to talk about. And I'll give you maybe a clue. We were at Porter Hotel, and as black women here, we were complaining about how our black sisters during convocation come to do like this in front of the settlers monument. They come. I was like, is that why you are here? Just take your certificate and go. Don't panic, because black sisters were together at Porter Hotel, NHS sisters were like, you are here. Why would you come and bring your bus, bring everything for the visit to say, is that why you are here? So you know what I mean? And some of them think they are doing the right thing. That's what I'm trying to. That's why I brought that example, so that you have an idea. They think it's not this is convocation. So that's what that's what I'm asking. I need a bit of, because some people have copied that negative way of presenting themselves in such an academic forum to get their certificates. I don't know if you're understanding me. Some other black sisters, either consciously or unconsciously, think it is the right way to demonstrate myself when I am in such a forum. So I need a bit of clarification. And then for the second speaker, I just want to say that I want to reiterate this fact that Mdluli is an African poet. He says life is a mission to be fulfilled. As sisters, no matter who we are, I agree with my sister that talked about female bonding. You can't go through the journey of life, because of whatever. Everybody is me, only me. Find a way. Your life is it's better when you are able to affect another person's life, affect another person's life. I want to reiterate the fact that female bonding can be very strong when you are going through such challenges as a woman, because your sisters are going to help you overcome that. And I'll give you a practical example. My colleague is a senior lecturer. The husband died. He was sick. And we knew what that meant for her, of how she was going to be beaten. She came from USA. You know what I mean? Now, what the head of department did, who was a woman, was to get a police. While the funeral, and I'm talking about a true life story, while the man's corpse was in front, we were there. The head of department, who is another big woman, got police. So everybody was seated in the church, and the policemen were seated with her. I don't know whether you see such female. She couldn't have been able to foot the bills. It was, and everywhere, even after the burial ceremony, we had put ourselves together to no, we won't allow her go through this kind of torture. Whether, in my society, no matter, to take the mercy of God, for any level you belong to, they always find a way. So I just want to reiterate the fact that we shouldn't live our lives. Because he said something that strengthened me, and she talked about super strength. I told myself, yes. And she said, women are trained to be mothers and to nurture. So I want to call our attention, only me, which we unconsciously, me, might not work. And then for my sister, I think it is, okay, I want to take myself out of my religion now. I think it is both Christianity and Islam that creates patriarchy and marginalization or oppression of women in different spaces. And I would explain a little bit from the Christian point of view. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, be submissive unto your husband. So, like you said, you don't have a life. The man beats you, submissive. He steals your money, submissive. He goes to the bank, he takes everything, no money, submissive. So I think it's depending on the structure. It is both religion who try to oppress women, but in different structures. Another wonderful experience of a woman the husband was a pastor, and she used to run to my mother. Sorry, I'm going to cut this. And my mother would say, keep quiet. If you say it, he will lose his job. the sad part of this thing is, I'm telling you a true life story now. One day the man, she was breastfeeding, the man hit her and she died with the baby. I mean, she died. Now, church, you know, they ran. Hey, mommy, Joy, Auntie Joy, come. Daddy don't beat my mommy don't die. That problem that was not resolved became a problem in the society. The church was closed down. I don't know whether you see this issue of keeping quiet, and we lost that woman till today. The child was brought to our house.
Sorry. Thank you. So we'll take the next question. Oh, wait, yeah, we'll take it.
Thank you so much, Tim. This panel is doing the most. I have questions for Thatshisiwe and Evelyn. I really enjoyed this paper. I think it will make an important contribution. I was just wondering about, how you are theorizing death as work that women do. Because I think it might be useful before you theorize these forms of resistance to locate African women in the place of death. The process of Ukuzenza, and I was reading Vida Dasi's book on life and words. So she's writing from an Indian context, but even there she makes the point that it is women who do the work of mourning, the work of death, the practical work of death. And of course, Rampele's work of political widowhood. So she was writing about a particular time in South Africa, where she says women are important in the process of death at that time, because actually through the widow, the male hero is able to retain his life and his legacy. So she must embody that. And so that's how we end up with Umamu Epanet Mbeki, even though she and Governor Mbeki had been separated, for years after he came out of prison. When he dies, she becomes, she has to perform widowhood, because then she becomes he's able to, not to be alive, but through her. And so I think that might be quite important. And I wonder about who has written also about then the family meetings that happen during that funeral. Is anyone writing about that? Because then women's reaction, the widow's place in that, I think it must be situated around those meetings. Absolutely contested, infuriating meetings. I think if there's work there, I think we must be able to draw on it, because it tells us about, as you were saying, the widow is supposed to just sit there and receive the news. And of course, there's a point that you also made about how Black women, African ways of mourning, and I know you mentioned even Jewish ways of mourning. What is useful about them is that one has to sit there for a week or two, where the family has to hear how this person died. So the widow is sitting there. For all the visitors that come for good 2 weeks, there is that usually it's a man of the family who will say, so this and this happened, and then we got the phone call, and then the person died. And there's something useful about that, because then the family, it sits in that this person is gone. So I think that kind of situating what death means within the African family, African context, and the widow's central place in it is important. Of course, I'm also very fascinated, and I don't know who's doing this, about the vigil itself. What is it? Yeah, I don't know if there's someone writing about it, because it's linked to how Africans do death. And then, okay, maybe I'm done with it. Sorry. So around Ukuzenza. And then with Evelyn, I'm trying to understand, how do you arrive, at this reading of Islam, Okay, maybe the first thing I want to say is, so I haven't read this book, but I know that there's been a lot of engagement with it, a lot of literary engagement with it. How has this book been read by feminists, by people of different disciplines? Are other people reaching the same conclusion that you are? What are the various ways in which So Long a Letter has been read? And I'm just not sure that there is enough, even from one novel or book, that can allow one to reach a conclusion that there's something specific about Islam that is more dangerous than Christianity. I'm not sure there is enough data to make that. I think it could be read as Islamophobic. In fact, I received it that way, I must say. In South Africa, I think South Africa can generally be read to be a Christian nation, okay? And here we are living in a context of femicide, and how we understand that is that there is a war on women's bodies. So one of the dangerous things that one can do is to be a woman in South Africa. It's not a Muslim country, you know. And I'm sure before you came here, you were warned about your safety, right? So how do you make that jump? You know, I think when we're living in a context where there's been a criminalization of Islam and Muslims, propagated by Americans who politicized Islam during the Cold War, I just think we cannot accept it as Africans. You know, that kind of criminalization of the religion and of the people that practice it. And so I'm just not sure as a feminist how one arrives at that point. And in fact, I think it's anti-feminist. And connected to that, you know, the point you make about women bonding, is that, what is that? Is that sisterhood? Where do we place it within that long feminist debate around sisterhood? Because in fact, Nigerian feminists who have argued that sisterhood doesn't work in Africa, precisely because women, we are located in different places. You know, so what I found valuable about my women's work is that she allowed me to understand that, you know, the wife and a patrilineal daughter, those people are not the same, right? Because there is a specific place for wives, and indeed, when my mother goes home to her sisters and brothers in that community, when she's back in her patrilineal home, she is equal to her siblings. But when she is in her marriage home, she is a wife. It doesn't mean she doesn't have agency, but it limits the extent to which she can be in solidarity or she can bond with my father's sisters. So how do you engage that within the ways in which African feminists have been very skeptical of the universalization of sisterhood? Because the very white women who have proclaimed sisterhood are the ones who are also racist and classist. The point that the chair was saying, that even in our society we are not equal, but even in terms of the economy, we are just not equal. So it limits the extent to which we can bond. There are structural reasons that affect that bond. Yes. Yeah.
And the last question before I let the respondents.
So first, my area of specialty is West African religious history, and my area of research is particularly Senegal. So I'm just going to make some corrections, and I hope you don't get angry with me. What you were saying about Senegalese women in divorce and Islam, it's not true in Senegal. A woman can initiate divorce, and she has rights, and this is not even under the new law, that's the traditional law. If she doesn't like what her husband is doing, she go back to her parents' house. And it's a shame if a man abandons his family. Though men do it for a second wife, they usually at least show some type of way that they're still with him. Secondly, no colonizer brought Islam to Senegal. Islam has been in Senegal since 900 AD. So that's a good millennium. And it's different now. It's been 20-something years since I read that book. I read it as an undergraduate. And I was wondering, I said, all these characters in that book? The main story I remember in that book, though, was the man marrying his daughter's friend. I remember that story. But I don't think he abandoned the wife. I think he just took the second wife and started paying less attention to the first wife. I mean, that may be splitting hairs, but that means something. You know, you abandon a woman, you gone. And I don't think he ever just walked away. So that's just, and you know, I understand the perspective you're coming from, because in Nigeria there is this divide between Islam and Christianity. In Senegal, that divide doesn't always exist because Christians have Muslim family members and Muslims have Christian family members. So I just wanted to add that to that, and I had a lot more to say, but I'm gonna cut it short. And for you, since I've been at this conference, I've heard different women talking about the knowledge that their grandmothers had. And then there's clearly a divide between women in academia or, Western educated women and those women who don't have that. And there are different ways of coping with patriarchy. And negotiating. So I personally think that there is something to be learned from the grandmothers, because they have knowledge that has kept women alive, and the women who are today, it's not always a good situation to take on these patriarchal situations face on. Sometimes it is good to be quiet, as you demonstrated. So my question to you is that, do you have some type of methodology for bringing together these two types of knowledge that can be effective for women? The knowledge from the Western educated woman and the knowledge from the traditional woman. And how can these two, what I call grassroots feminism, how can these two be brought together in an effective manner? And lastly, and I'll be done, I appreciate the first presenters being candid, because what I want to say is that what you told about your niece and the fact that you brought your daughter means that you're not just performing academic. You're not a performing academic today. You're a woman in all layers of womanhood. Your mother, your auntie, and now you're our teacher. So I appreciate that. That was refreshing. That's all I have to say on that.
Okay, last one.
Okay.
We'll come back to you.
My question is for Evelyn, having to do with polygamy. There was a sentence there that you said that polygamy doesn't work in Africa anymore, or modernity. Polygamy used to work in Africa, and modernity doesn't exist, or modernity doesn't permit polygamy to exist for a happy household or a happy home or something of that sort. My contention really is, or rather I would want to ask how you have constructed or understood modernity within our contexts for you to arrive to a place where you say that polygamy doesn't work or doesn't allow people to be happy, particularly because I don't see a correlation when we compare people who have one husband or one wife being any more significantly happier or fulfilled or safer within our context. I think that there is a negation of the relationships between power, gender, class within marriages that you are not getting to, and you've made a conclusion that there's something to do with the number of women in a marriage or the number of people who are within a marriage, when I think it has more to do with power and the nature of our post-colonial states and the places that it relegates us to, particularly when we then enter into marriage. So I think that you need to, there's a nuance that needs to be brought to an assertion like that polygamy is not modern, and then also polygamy makes people unhappy. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to let you respond.
I'm not sure if I understood what the question was, really. I think you're referring to Ukuzenza, and you're linking it to practice.
Explain. I said I don't know, that I'm trying to, because
from the
according to
beginning-
Black Feminism, I did not get it.
Yeah. Because I think what I'm trying to speak to are ways of doing feminism, right?
Oh, okay.
And I think the first thing I said also, ways of doing feminism and how that allows us into thinking about being human, right?
Okay.
And what I said in the beginning, that if you're looking at translation and transparency, right? These are things that are asked by most of the time by Eurocentric ideas of us having to be transparent and us having to translate.
Okay.
And what happens is that I said we deal with the body, and the body doing needs to be placed as what it's doing, rather than being translated into this is what is happening now and this is what is happening now and therefore, right? And also it depends where you're speaking from, right? And I said in the beginning that I'm trying to understand what Toni Morrison says when she's saying I'm writing without the gaze. What does that mean, right? And the question then I move from what does it mean, how do we? Then is my thinking. Then how do we stop talking about it? What does it mean? What does it mean? How? How does it look like? Right? And how do we begin to write that? Is what I'm trying to question.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. I don't know if answering questions will do justice at this particular point, but I'll try to respond to some of the comments. You really get a sense of the social class. So my respondents were diverse, from the most educated in honors degree and to someone who never really went to school. But what was striking for me was that some of the themes that cut across, regardless of the level of the social class of these women. But in the thesis itself, I really highlight how social classes made a difference in their response to what was happening. Maybe it's something that I'll have to also highlight in this paper and make it come out strongly. And the comment on symbolic and cultural violence, how do you speak about that? I'm afraid if I start talking about it now, I'll mess up. It's something that I'm trying to toy around so that I include it in the future versions of this paper. So I mention it and I'll read more on it, and maybe when I have more knowledge on it, and then I'll then put it there. I didn't understand the question on objects, but it was the silence and then putting a merit certificate out there to talk on your behalf, because there's this cultural expectation that we have to be silent, also using it to, push back. So that's how I saw it, I took it. And then the way I talked of female bonding, it came out very strongly. There was a lot of support, between women mostly, especially, the female side of the family. But you say that they are also from the male side of the family. I don't know if it's, so there is a lot of custodian of patriarchal. We are the male side, therefore we are, somewhere halfway. So there was that thing, it was there, but also there are other females that were, upholding those patriarchal values and trying to push them into the lives of the other women. So most of what Sipoga is saying, I think it is something that I will have to theorize in depth, in the process of Ukuzenza and how these women embody the male hero performing widowhood. I took them as comments that I think will enrich my paper. Not much really has been written on widowhood. I know in South Africa, there are a lot of papers, but it's on widowhood rights, not really theorizing widowhood. So it's more of curiosity. This is what happens, and maybe I get also drawn into that, and it comes out in my paper. So I'll try and include more of this theorizing death and Ukuzenza and other things. So.
Then more reference you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, so on methodology, thank you for that question. I don't know if you can suggest something. So, but for this one, I used life history narratives. So it was, but now you're talking about bringing the different knowledges together. So I haven't really thought about that. If you tell me what that one
I was hoping you knew.
Okay, the first question is on the social class. Like, I talked about different, it is diverse because there are those that are educated, not only that they just have educated, they are highly educated people, lawyers, university lecturers, medical doctors. And also there are even young people that have not even gone to school, like the children, the mother going to pick a child, the brother's daughter to train her as a nurse, to use her against the fellow women. So, it's women that allow their daughters to be taken. So, we women should, in everywhere we are, whether we are educated or not, we should know that it's just fighting against fellow women. Like even the mother-in-law that advised the daughter to go into that marriage. You see that the daughter took the right step by going to the mother to ask. And look at what this man is saying, am I to, go into that marriage? And the mother that's supposed to keep her the advice not to go, or is the one that advised her to go into that marriage because of material things she will get from that marriage. So just every, all classes of women are involved in marriage. And also foreigners, what happens, like when a woman is brought into another country, somebody can marry from Nigeria to this South Africa. You see that person will come loving the man and following the man like the paper man my sister presented, to just to come as, find out that the culture and practices in that country will be against her. And that is what, the paper is what I highlighted in the book. Then, and using one novel. You asked first about the novel, how the novel is read. The novel is, I'm even surprised that but if you ask those in literature, it is read, it's well read in all parts of the country. This Mariama pass as a feminist writer. Because even in that novel is a kind of her life story. The story is about her. Just her life story. And we teach it in the university, like they want you to we use it in the university.
But how has it been helped?
We use it in literary studies. We treat it in African fiction, we use it as in gender studies. It is well read. And also there are other tests, other than literary tests that even highlight about the treatment of women in Muslim countries. Though we came to this and noticed that we didn't know about this conference before until when we arrived at this university. And I just chose one. Not that if there's need that I can add another novel from another, I will go as far as choosing one from Egypt and combining them to show that it's not only in West Africa, it's in all places, all Muslim countries in Africa. And also you talked about, women bonding. Like in my culture, in Igbo society, we practice it so much because we have a kind of meeting, like if it is in a town, yeah, we have what we call the Umada, Association of Daughters. We also have the Alutaradi, the Association of Wives. And in this meeting, they discuss things that help women to cope with the patriarchal practices in the society. It helps so much. And in this test I've used, the friend that relocated to US did not abandon her friend in Senegal. We were just sending her things that will help her when she was passing through the trauma of being abandoned. And also women around her helped her. Because when a person is taking care of the family alone, there are many challenges. Even one of the daughters got pregnant out of wedlock, but she was able to manage the situation, because the man that impregnated her is a student. She managed the situation so well, took care of the daughter and the baby, and after some time the daughter went back to school. Just through the help of other women, the mother of the boy and herself. So it is the kind of women bonding that I'm talking about. When women should, instead of being used to inflict afflictions to their fellow women, they should come together and think of what will help women to be able to overcome the patriarchal practices, the unjust patriarchal practices on them. Then modernity and polygamy. Like in the introduction, I mentioned that the way polygamy is practiced in Africa before. So because Africans, they are known because of their autonomous society. A woman going into marriage will just know that I'm going there, as the third wife, and be calling even a co-wife mother, and even being obedient. But now, no woman will, woman don't find it easy now to go and accept it, And now the younger ones will enter into the family and demand that the elder women should give. Like it is what is happening in our country this time around, especially when they are looking for the male child. A woman that will enter and be lucky to get the male child will demand the husband to tell others to leave. So it's not working as it was working before.
Our most recent president had how many wives?
Exactly.
Okay. 5 or 6. But even if
they are not fighting now because they are looking at
the thing that I was trying to get at is that you've made a direct line between Africans not being modern and taking on polygamy, which then makes them unhappy or disempowers women. And what I was saying is that, which President Zuma and his wives are a perfect example of, that power, class, gender, all those identity markers interact in different ways that inform your existence in whatever context that you are alive in, and that informs whether you're empowered or you're not empowered. I know members of parliament here in Zimbabwe, wherever. I mean, my lived experience of polygamy is from Zimbabwe, and depending on the class, etc., of those people, they live very empowered lives, polygamous and otherwise. And so I think making that link, that conclusion that you've made, particularly when you then say in Africa, because you then make all of us here, depending on where we come from, complicit in that statement. I'm asking you to nuance that statement. So maybe say in the village that you have interviewed people from, in that particular context, from this class, because of this education level, polygamy translates into this for them. Because it is not that for Makumalo, and it's not that for the people that I know. That's what I'm saying.
I agree. Thank you for that. I agree perfectly with you. I agree with you what people are saying. I think I have an idea. I have been in South Africa, so I understand that, and it was a bit direct. I was also going to say that the research was contextual.
Yeah.
I have made that mistake of saying the African woman, forgetting that our cultures vary, West Africa, South Africa, North Africa. So I have made that mistake in the conference, and I was corrected. So I think where the issue was she did not specify the context of what she was saying, because you are right, it works for some people. Some people are very wealthy and they don't care. The other one comes and they are comfortable. So I think
this is only one part of the issue. That's why I think there needs to be
Several.
Understanding of patriarchy.
Yeah.
Patriarchy screws you whether you are in a monogamous relationship or it doesn't matter. Otherwise, why are white women, why is there such a high divorce rate for white women? Right? Marriage is not even working for the people that have claimed to endorse one man, one woman. Look at the Americans, look at the Europeans. It's not working for them. So why are you proposing that as the solution? And on what basis? And what is the work of patriarchy? The work of patriarchy is to displace women, right? And so this assumption that if women just bond, then we'll defeat patriarchy. Then the same logic should be, if black people just bond, then we'll end racism. No, it is the structure that holds racism together that is messing up with our lives, that is killing us. It is the same thing with patriarchy. I mean, I cannot accept this, I'm sorry.
No, but it's
infuriating. And this idea that, you can read Islam on its own terms.
I agree.
We can say, so I want to understand patriarchy through the lives of Christian women. And I can say Christianity is patriarchal. I can say that.
Which there's Mormons who practice
this polygamy.
and then there's Christians who say one man, one wife. It's not true like Christians.
Exactly. So how do you make a whole judgment about a whole religion? So if you can't do that with Christianity, how are you going to do that with Islam? And then to say, in fact, I'm reading the lives of this Muslim woman, and then I'm going to conclude then that actually Muslim women are more in danger than Christian women. How? How do you make that conclusion in a world that is racist and Islamophobic? I think you have to understand this. You have to understand that whole people's lives have been destroyed and criminalized in the ways in which our black bodies have been criminalized. Now that it seems as if we have been, they've stopped with us now, they are dealing with the Muslims. It cannot be.
Yeah, we agree. I agree
It cannot be.
And we can't fortify their attack on the Muslims by creating knowledge that doesn't, problematize the way that they've already been read. I think that's what,
I agree with Pokala, and I just want to say something about this female body. Female body is not necessarily a group of persons. Myself, Sikokazushi, we write on the same thing. That's bonding. She brings her idea, I bring my idea, she corrects me, I correct, I don't know if you understand. So depending on different structures, I think that needed to be explained, that depending on different structures, female bonding is different. Of course, like you can see that I knew that when she was talking, I knew that this reaction was when I won't, because I've been in South Africa and I've been able to see the differences, and I will not do such, conclusions about what was said in the novel. What I treated yesterday for my own paper was racial discrimination. And because I looked at the South African society and I tried to relate it, how does it work South Africa and here? So when you talk about female bonding, that's what I want to correct. It's not that you go and bond with everybody. Yourself and she talked about transparency, which I liked. Yourself and another woman who have the same ideas, we go and we put things together that would work in a particular space, not of course all the spaces.
So thank you very much, because we've run out of time. We can continue this, I think, over tea and three great insights on World War.